Welcome back to Armchair Author Chats. I'm your host, Rita Slanina, and today we have the lovely, the beautiful mistress of horror, D.L. Tillery, a fiction writer who's a retired dance artist and instructor, currently an entrepreneur, author, and homeschool mom. My brand is the mistress of horror, which means she's married to all the other genres, but the mistress of horror. I love this. She writes dark fantasy, dark romance, horror, and dark poetry, though has other pen names on the way that she will be publishing under for her other works in the near future. Let's find out more about DL right now. Bring her on. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great.
So, let's start with your latest book, Cagliostro, The Tale of Laverton.
Yep.
How would you pitch it in one sentence?
Ooh, funny thing, I came up with so many over the amount of time that up. So I have one that I'm still trying to memorize, but I do have it written down. Bound by fate and fortune and darkness, Cagliostro, Tale of Libertin weaves a chilling yet seductive tale of a being who thrives in the shadows, where love is a dangerous game and the unknown is more terrifying than the monsters that lurk within. So I worked on that for a minute.
It's good. I'm sold. So, what was the spark that set this story in motion? Did it come from a real life experience, a dream, or something totally unexpected?
It turned into something totally unexpected. It originally started off as just a vampire tale, but it grew into something completely different than that, though it has vampires and werewolves within the story, werewolf-based creatures, but it turned into this whole angelic beings and things like that. So it was like I wanted to tell a story that way. And Cagliostro itself is laced in cosmic horror as well. So there's a lot of things integrated in the story. So that's kind of like where the whole idea came from because I was in love with like vampires and werewolves and stuff.
I love that. So, your characters feel real. Do you base them on people you know, or do they take on a life of their own? I mean, we do know vampires in real life. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Right.
We never know. Um, so with this, with my characters and with them feeling real, I don't generally base them off of other like real people or anything like that. They tend to kind of like become their own thing because my books and my worlds are very character based, and the world kind of grows from the characters that I create. And I did in one instance base a character that's actually in the Cagliostro world on a friend of mine as far as her description of her looks and things, which she just gets tickled pink about and loves because one of the male characters in the book she's in love with, and I made him her love interest. So then she's just like, "It's me. I'm in the book. I'm in the book, and I have Duncan now. He's all mine." So I do those kinds of things sometimes just for the fun of it. So yeah,
Which
most of
is
my characters
super
do.
fun, right? Because how many times have we written characters up and then someone calls you, is that about me?
So true. They definitely do. So yeah, I will play with that sometimes if someone that exists inspires me. And actually when I do create my characters, I do search the internet for likeness, people that I see in my head that represent my characters. So I look for them in actual to see have visuals for when I do get the characters created by a character artist. So
Wonderful. So, writing can be a wild process, as we all know. Do you have any quirky habits, routines, or must have rituals when writing a book?
I do have a few. I tend to always make a playlist for each of my books. So I'll look for music that I think resonates with the particular story. Also for Cagliostro, I have a friend who's in Japan who does compose his own music. And I had came in contact with him like way back when I was still doing my dance work convention and things like that. And I had him create a song for my dance convention. So when I got to write this book, I contacted him and asked him would he be interested in collaborating with me, and like gave him some synopsis and stuff of the book, and said, could you possibly make an album or mini album or something based off this story? And he was like, sure, I'd love to do that. So we actually, Cagliostro has his own official album that I use on the book trailers and things like that. So I really get into my quirkiness when I do books, is I really get into like the all roundabout ways that people could connect with it and things like that. So when I make a playlist with music, then I try to make just different things to set up when I write, because then it inspires me more. I look up like books that could be similar. I look up movies that could be similar, things like that. So something could be relatable, which you can use that information for later when you're selling the book too. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's brilliant. Are you kidding? That's absolutely brilliant. Take notes. To all y'all watching. This is this is advice. This is free advice.
yes.
Leave no stone unturned when you want to find a way to connect to your audience, because that is just that was great. That was so brilliant. I love music too.
Yes.
So, what was the most rewarding or most challenging part of writing Cagliostro?
I think that the most rewarding part, before we get into the most difficult part, the most rewarding part was when I pressed the publish button. Because it was such a long time coming. And I started writing Cagliostro in 2010, and it did not come out until the end of last year. I released it on my birthday, December 5th, as a gift to myself, for finally releasing my book baby, my magnus opus. So I was giving a gift to myself for that, you know. So it was like, right, it was so inspiring, and I patted myself on the back for like all the hard work, all the money I put into it, and finally just getting somebody to read it. So that was like the most rewarding part of it. And every time I hear someone gush about a character or ask me a question or read it in general, if I get a review, then I'm just smitten. I'm so happy when I get a review and someone just saying words. It doesn't even have to be a good review. Granted, I haven't gotten any bad reviews, but just the fact that someone actually took the time to purchase it or write it or just read it, like just that was rewarding to me. And the most difficult part, like I cannot stand the editing process. Like I do not like it at all. It's like the worst thing to me. Well, next to marketing, that's the other,
Agreed.
that is the other bad. Like the hardest thing is those two things: editing, which is I've gotten my process a little better now, so that's not as bad. But everyone wants to just do the fun part where you write the story, you create the characters, you do all the fun stuff, you know. But the most difficult part is definitely editing, which isn't as bad. But I think marketing promotion takes the cake of all of the difficult parts. That's just like when you know it's coming, and it is every single time you release a book, and it's for each individual book. You're just like, oh, please, can I just like wave a magic wand and make all the good things happen? And but that's not reality. So I would say that marketing promotion, though I'm always constantly learning, and I have the amazing guru, Dale L. Roberts, to thank for a lot of information I've occurred. And all right, he's awesome. But like that would be the most difficult part. So it's just like both of these ends of these things.
You know, we had Dale on, and I'm telling you, he has been such a driving force for me in the marketing aspect of it so much. I can totally relate to what you're saying. And friends,
Yes.
if you are an aspiring writer, the writing is sincerely the most fun part. But you will spend more time marketing, promoting, editing, doing all the things that we don't necessarily like than the writing. So, publishing can be a roller coaster. What's been your biggest wow or what just happened moment in your journey so far?
I think my biggest wow was I did for this particular book, and when I published it, this was the big deal book because I had released two small, well, three books before it, but they were smaller, so the it just didn't seem as like big. I did smaller promotions and things like that. This one took a lot of thinking, and I decided to do a Kickstarter for this one. And before I even launched it to the public, which the wow moment for me was that it actually double funded. So it was like I only asked for a small thing, but it doubled, and I was like, wow! It's like I was shocked. I put a lot of work into the Kickstarter. It turned out really great, but then you still have to be like, is it going to make it? Because a Kickstarter funding is still like a big deal because it's not easy to get it to fund. So that was one of my wow moments for this particular book and publishing because it was part of my publishing journey very specifically for this book. But the what happened moment, I think I had a what happened moment when I actually had the first editor touch this book. And when I got the the book back from her, it wasn't what it was supposed to be. And I paid a really good money for it. It's like my editor nightmare story. So I really was like, what is happening? I did all the research on this person. I read, even went as far to read books that the person had edited because I'm a big reader anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. So I did do my due diligence to make sure that this was a person that could fit me. Turns out not. And I paid for a critique edit and a copy edit, and the critique edit was supposed to be for the book, but the person did a critique edit mostly for the secondary character, the female lead, because I guess she liked the female lead, and then very little on the main character. Because I was really confused. But I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be like critique edit of the entire work, but it was not. And then she on the second or third page there were errors. And I'm like, I paid you $1,300 for this, you know what I mean? So that was like one of my wow, like what happened moments. But then you live and learn as an author. And sometimes you do your due diligence, and still bad things could happen. So I did end up finding a great editor later on, a recommendation from another author friend. That's good. Now I have two editors I can trust for my work. But sometimes we have to go through the bad to get to the good. So yeah, those two instances.
Whew, and that's a learning experience, and gosh, whew, that would stress me out.
Right?
Thank you for sharing that experience. So every writer has those stuck moments. How do you get past writer's block, or if you don't get writer's block, a creative slump?
Yes, I actually haven't experienced writer's block. I think I'm so just into so many things, and my mind just is constantly working that I haven't have gotten writer's block. I used to call writer's block life block because life gets in the way sometimes, and we also get distracted by life and things we're dealing with because we're human. So I never really myself called it writer's block because I think if being a writer, you're quite creative than just the average person who does it daily and daily in writing. So I think it mostly comes down to the stresses that we have anyway that could make that occur if it does for you. I haven't come across that, but um I have come across the time, not finding the amount of time I would like to use for writing because I'm an entrepreneur. So I run two businesses besides doing my author career, and I'm a homeschool mom. So a lot of attention to that, and it takes a lot of time. So I usually have to set a very strict schedule in order for me to get some writing in. But when I'm on a project and I have a focus that I must finish this book, then I will write every day. I don't generally write every day. My general is like I write at least 3 times a week because I know the free time that I actually have on those days. But when I'm on a project, I usually write every single day, even if it's only an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. So, yeah. And in those instances, that's how I am with that. My creative juices are overflowing. So I have so many books planned, outlined, ready to go under different genres. It's a crazy madhouse in here. So,
I love it. I love it. Let's dream big. If Cagliostro were turned into a movie or TV show, who would you cast in the lead?
Ooh, I've thought of different people for quite a bit. And I end up going with the one actor. His name is Akash Kumar. He's a model who has dibbled a little bit in acting. Beautiful man, I must say. But he has the very striking eyes and the perfect skin tone to match Cagliostro. And if Cagliostro himself was mortal, a human, he would fall under um, mixed, like Indian and German, and that's pretty much where his background was. I'm mixed myself. I'm Native American. I have African descent, Puerto Rican and Mexican. So with those mixed backgrounds, it's kind of like how everything I do is very mixed, you know.
Oh, I
So it's how
love
my
that.
characters
That's
are.
right. Celebrate it, all of it. It's beautiful. I love that, and he sounds so sexy.
He
He
is.
is.
His eyes are like an ice blue with that tan skin, and his hair is just like I'm like I could stare at you all day. I just, I just could.
It's getting a little hot in here. I'm gonna move on. Next question. Get ourselves in trouble. So books have the power to change us. What's one book besides your own that has deeply impacted you?
I'm going to say because I've read a lot of fantasy growing up. I've read every genre, every non-fiction genre. I'm a big book reader. I have a personal library of over 5,000 books. So it's vast. And I read a lot as a child. And most of that library is read. I have some TBR, but that's mostly in my office. And the books that I would say that impacted me a lot was be Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And that would be because that story in itself is about being the smallest person being able to persevere and make the biggest difference. And that's why that store has always resonated with me because I believe that just because you don't have the biggest stature, you don't have the biggest wallet, you don't have the biggest anything, that doesn't mean you can't make a change in the world, and in your own life. So that's where what I kind of gathered from Lord of the Rings. And that was one of the reasons why I was a little upset with the movie series, though I love the movie series, because they kind of missed J.R.R. Tolkien's message in the story. Because even though they had the hobbits in the story and still tried to portray that they were the main characters, they did focus on the bigger people more than what the story was about being the smallest person making the biggest difference. And without them, everything would have fell apart. So that's the book that resonated with me a lot.
Nice. If you could have a dinner party with three literary characters, yours or someone else's, who would you invite and why?
I would say my favorite fantasy character for sure because I just love him. Dritz Du Arden, and he is a dark elf in the Forgotten Realm series who is also by my favorite fantasy writer, R.A. Salvatore. And I like Dritz because he is different than he's different than a lot of characters in fantasy where he has onyx skin and white hair, and his people are known to be completely villains, like completely evil. He's the opposite of that. And so he had to persevere over that, proving that he was not like that and all these different things in his story, his arc. And I would love to have a conversation with him from all the stories that I've read about him from his perspective directly, not from just the person who created him. The other character, of course, Cagliostro, because like Cagliostro probably like, why are you doing this stuff to me? Why and I want to hear him fuss at me about like, could would we not do that? I'm not in the mood. Can I have a vacation from running all these businesses that I have in the store? So that would be an interesting conversation. And then the third character would be Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings, and that character particularly because he does a transcending arc in the book where he's Gandalf the Grey, but then he becomes Gandalf the White, and he's actually portrayed as a wizard in the story, but actually in the story, he's a different type of being that's just being portrayed and coming in a body of being a wizard, but he's like from a different realm that's more in an angelic setting, and he's down here with the humans to help out. So that's why I like this decide to go off. That's why he's there to help. But I would be really curious as to what the other realm was like. Would be his words on that subject. So I've always been quite curious about those more in depth things because unfortunately. J.R.R. Tolkien didn't get to completely go into his lore and world to that degree, though he did create Elvish and all those things that we all use nowadays in our fantasy stories. But like, I would really like to have a conversation with Gandalf the White.
I think I'll crash that dinner. What's one piece of advice you'd give to aspiring writers who hope to follow in your footsteps?
I would always say to write the story you want to tell, and do your due diligence, do your best to believe in yourself. It's not the easiest thing to always believe in yourself, um, because even if you don't have others that believe in you, the first step for others to believe in you is for you to believe in yourself. That's the loving yourself, believing in yourself is definitely important. And of course, as writers, being very introverted in a lot of cases, we can be hard on ourselves, the most, because we're with ourselves a lot, you know what I mean? So it's okay to be hard on yourself, but you do have to remember to be gentle with yourself and love yourself. So definitely try to believe in yourself and don't give up. If you write that story and you're afraid to put it out, but you think people may not like it, then just know there's someone who wants to read what you have. There's always going to be a group or a niche, or there's going to be a group of people who want to read what you have to offer. And if you don't ever put it out there, then you won't ever find the people that want to read what you have. So
That's great advice. Great advice. It's sort of like block out the noise.
yes,
Just ignore the noise.
make your
Make your
own
own
noise.
noise. That's right. Make your own noise. I like that. What's next for you? Can you give a sneak peek of any exciting projects or stories in the works?
Oh, yes, I have a lot on the way. Actually, Cagliostro Book 2 is planned to release for this year. I didn't give a month yet, but it's definitely going to be edging towards near the end of the year, similar to what it was last year. Because I am more than halfway done writing the second book. In my head, the series is completed. It's a three-part book series because when I do write, I know the ending of the book when I write the start of the book. I think that's very important when you write a series in order to keep everything aligned correctly and for it to go where it needs to go and not to be all over the place, at least personally for me when I write. So I'm definitely going to plan to release book 2 this year. I do have other stories that's in the Cagliostro world that will be releasing as well. Hence, Room Within and Fractals that I released before Cagliostro are based in the Cagliostro world. So you will get to see some side characters with their own books. If you purchase Cagliostro, then you get three bonus tales in the back of the book. The Narvella that is in the back of the book is Duncan's story called Winter Wolf. And then also in the back, there is Obsessed, which is Delata's one of her vampire stories. And then La Draga, which is another type of creature that's in the Cagliostro world, is just a side random character that I made for the world. And then, so the books that are coming like that, well, those three would be my horror collection, my short horror collection called Beyond the Veil, which if you read Cagliostro, you'll find out about the veiled world and the mortal world. So Beyond the Veil hosts about 7 to 8 short horror stories that are based in the Cagliostro world. That's coming out this year. And then The Room Within is its own mini series. That's going to be a 6-part series. And that's called the Within series. So the second part to that comes out this year as well, called Trapped Within. And a lot of people who read The Room Within would be like, wait a minute, didn't Daniel not make it at the end of The Room Within? Oh, but he is the second character in the second part. So that one's always a fun one to tease. So those three for sure coming out this year. Now, as far as what other things I have on the fire, I'm going to be leaning into my romance side because I do write strict romance as well. There will be some contemporary. There will be some paranormal romance stories that are outlined and ready to be written. I do my own cover designs for those particular books. And I'll probably be doing my cover design for all my books going forward, except for the Cagliostro series. Hopefully, sticking with the cover artist that I have, Dusan Malkovich, who's amazing. I'm going to try to stick with him because he's so freaking great. But we'll see what happens. If not, then you'll see a cover change for Cagliostro series. But on my channel on YouTube, I'll talk all about it there if that occurs. But yes, that's what I have this year. But there's a lot of stuff coming.
Gosh, that is so exciting. Ah! I love it. So, a couple bonus fun questions before I free you. If you had to describe your writing style in 3 words, what would they be?
Dark, demanding, and mysterious.
I love that. Writing fuel, coffee, tea, or something stronger?
I would say I love boba tea, which is it has like a milk type of. I like strawberry and mango boba tea. Is a more of a Chinese cultured drink, and I do drink other teas. Chamomile tea is one of my favorite teas, which is a type of green tea mixture with that. And if I do drink a coffee, which I do sometimes, people would say that's not coffee, that's dessert. Um, but that's fine. I do like sweet things. So I do tend to drink very particularly a white chocolate caramel cappuccino. I love the flavor. It is bomb. And I usually make it on my Keurig machine. So that's my go-to
That
to
sounds
treat
amazing.
myself. It's yummy.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have to FaceTime one of these days so that you can show me how to make
Yes.
that because that sounds, oh my gosh,
It's so good.
so decadent. I'm kidding. If you could magically live inside any fictional world for a day, which would it be?
Now this one's funny because as your last guest said, which I love, Santiago, he's quite correct. Most of the worlds that I would just love to go in would just end me. Like I would just be over. Like I would hope I would go in and just have all kinds of magical powers. If I had a choice, I would because I need to protect myself. But if I had to pick one that I know wouldn't necessarily end me, I'm gonna pick my friend's book, who was a author Aphrodite Lee, and she's gonna laugh at this, but I would go into now. She also writes erotica under Minx Knoche, and I've read that book. And I'm like, I think if I had to pick a book, I would pick one that is pleasurable, so I won't be because I love fantasy. So I would go into her world from the book The Seven Erotic Sins by Mix Knoche. And I particularly would pick chapter 5. And if you ever read this book, you would be like, you're a bad girl. That's what you would say to me.
Well, I am TBRing that as we speak, and I will be DMing you on that one. So,
Chapter 5, you're not
chapter
ready.
5. Thank you so much for being here, DL.
Thank you for having me.
Such an honor to have you here. I adore you. Would you like to leave our audience with the details on how they can buy your books and how they can find out more about you?
Yes. You can find me on my AuthorTube channel, where I talk about all things horror, not horror, and my journey as a indie author. I am on also social medias under Authordltillery. You can check me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, all the places. Just type me in. If you Google me, I'll come up. I have a lot of stuff out there. So do feel free to reach out anytime. Anybody who wants to talk about any of my books, I love getting DMs. And if you would like to join my newsletter, you can go to authordltillery.com and you can join my newsletter through that website. You can buy my books through my website. And if you go on any of my videos on my YouTube channel, I have my books to read link where you can buy any type of version of Cagliostro Tale of the Libertin. It is an ebook, hardback, paperback, and available on Apple Books for audiobook currently. So no matter how you take your books, you can get a copy of Cagliostro in some way or fashion for you. And it is available on all the different platforms, even on the library-based platforms as well. So I try to make it where it's available to everyone so that as many people can read it as possible. And I'm looking forward to hearing more people read Cagliostro and share it with as many people as possible. So please do check me out. And as I always like to say before I leave anyone who's spoken with me, my message: stay scared.
Thank you so much. I love it. If you like this interview, please like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to share. For more information, links will be in the description below and also in the show notes on the podcast.